All right, let's get Facebook going. We can start the show. Uh-oh. Facebook? Why? Well, Dylan, that might be a you thing on that. Wait a second. That's why I can't go because I added it before. I think we're okay. I think we're good now. Boom. Okay. I panicked for nothing, but it's Monday morning. We're here. It's the 7th of April, and it's time for an episode of Broncos for Breakfast. I am Nick Kendell, joined by Erick Trickel. Erick, what's going on behind you there? Why do you have an empty shelf? I feel like it's typical that you've got a lot of stuff. Do you have a curated museum of flow of things behind you? What's going on?
No, just waiting, still waiting for a volcano to blow. It's gonna be any day now, is what they're saying. And with it tends to come some earthquakes, and they think that this year that we can get a pretty big one. So got to protect some of the Legos. I'm ran out of room, which is why I have some on this side that are still sitting up there. I'm trying to figure out where to place some of those ones.
Hmm.
But don't want earthquakes knocking them over, falling down, breaking, and then having to take the time to find the instruction manuals to rebuild them.
And also, you could have overlap. Like if multiple fell and broke open, then you're trying to figure
Mhm.
out which goes with which. And at that point, I mean, what do you even? Could you figure it out? Would you be able
Oh
to? I
yeah,
mean,
oh yeah.
okay. That sounds like a lot of work. That sounds like a post-draft problem because right now we are knee deep, waist deep, neck deep into the draft. And we're going to talk today. We're going to do our Broncos' biggest draft needs, something that I think a lot of people will agree with, but I want to do top five, Erick, and we can, doesn't matter if we're the same or not. We'll kind of just rotate. We'll go from number one, which is probably obvious, but we'll see. And then we'll also do another full first round mock. Today, I think we talked about it before. We're going to split up conferences. So I'll go NFC for Nick, and you can go AFC, so you get the Broncos pick as well, or we can ask the chat and everything. So should be a lot of fun. Let's say hello to everybody coming in here, hanging out, having a good time. Mike Thompson is in the house. Good morning, all. Good morning to you. We got, Mr. Gilia. Hopefully that was it. If not, either way, good morning. String guys in the house. Good to see you. Colorado. Morning, all. Hope you're doing great. Doing pretty well. Doing pretty well. Yeah, quick, someone wake up Mile High Huddle. We're here. Typically, I was telling Erick, it's like, oh, Nick, you're early. I do the show with, I do a Falcons show typically with former co-host here, Scott Kennedy. And we always, I mean, we start that show at 5:30, 5:35, and we always go over. It's like, I'm tapping the private chat, like, I need to run. And we had the guest host on Wednesday, which you haven't had a chance to listen yet. Really fun show with Cody Alexander. But I'm like, he's still rolling the show. I'm like, I'm gone. I was like, I got to go. I'm leaving right now. I was like, okay, Nick's got to go. We're going to keep talking. So on time with that one, but we're here. We're doing it. It's okay. We got Jake. Have a great show today, everyone. Hopefully you didn't leave us. We're here. We're hanging out. Doing great. And somebody had a newborn. Must have missed that somewhere. Somebody's congratulating a newborn, but congrats on the newborn also. Oh, it must be Mike. Man, 3 boys, 5 and under. Oh, buddy, Mike, God bless you. God bless you. Raising boys is important. That's one of the, I always end the shows with kindness and compassion. And I have a boy myself, and that's a kindness. That's a big one. Jason, happy Monday, Broncos country. Good to see you. Rob Bucksbaum's in the house. Good morning, Nick and Erick. Seems like Caleb Johnson is getting less love than Genty Hampton and Travion Henderson. Why is that, Erick? I'll kick it to you.
Yeah,
Caleb
I
Johnson.
think I think part of the reason why is that with Genty, Hampton, and Trey Henderson, they all have that like elite aspect of it. Genty's just so all around. Hampton, that contact balance, and then Henderson, he brings a little bit more versatility than you see out of Caleb Johnson. And I really like Caleb Johnson. I think that it's fair that to say that he's not getting as much love as those guys when he should be. I think that it's not fair to judge him for the Iowa offense, mistakenly shrugging him off as an outside zone because that's not what they did. They changed it up and this last year. And I think that when you go back and you watch his combine workout, I mean, a lot of questions about his receiving ability, but at the combine, he showed more than he saw at Iowa. And you kind of got to blame Iowa for that because they can't pass the ball. So, like, obviously, you're not going to be able to throw or get a lot of receptions when you don't have a quarterback who can throw. Um, so I really like Caleb Johnson, and he's one of those guys at 51 that I would prefer over some of these other backs. Quinton Judkins, for example, I would prefer Caleb Johnson over him because I think what he has as a runner is easier to translate and project into the NFL in, in gap concepts and inside zone concepts. and even outside zone concepts. He's just easier to project than some of these other running backs that you're talking about in the second round.
Yeah, and what Erick's talking about there is Iowa's a new offensive coordinator switched for years and years and years. They were outside zone to the short side of the field, just like you could bank on it. That's what they were going to run. And they brought a new offensive coordinator, and they switched to a mid zone. So I think it's still read similarly to outside zone for a more offensive line than defense or running back. I think it's still read the same for running backs, but the landmarks for the offensive tackles and the guards change. So that is, I agree with you. He tested not great. He had a really bad 10-yard split. The 40 is not, you see the flashy numbers of guys like Judkins and Hampton, and he falls a bit. And I will, to be fair to Iowa's offense as well, while the pass game is bad, and the wide receivers are worse than the quarterback, which is hard to believe out there. So, like, why would you pass the ball when your offensive pass game infrastructure is like that? But Iowa's offensive line last year was a really good, cohesive, coherent unit, and he had a lot of chances where he had runways going forward in the games where he was being tackled and muddy behind the line of scrimmage, which is tough for any running back. But you see, like, for example, like Genty versus Penn State, and he's getting met at the line or behind the line and still getting positive yards. Caleb had some issues with that against UCLA, against Ohio State. And I think part of that is he's not as twitchy in the short areas. And also it's his upright running style. While he does have good contact balance in the open field, and I think he sets up blocks pretty well to like reduce angles, because of his high cut run style, it sometimes doesn't lend itself to change of direction and dealing with muddiness in the backfield. So I think he is, all running backs are, but I think he is dependent on that first level working in the run game. And as you mentioned earlier, it's not that he can't be a passing weapon. I mean, his best play of the entire year was a screen against Nebraska where he broke like 8 tackles and ran for a touchdown. I mean, that was, if you haven't had a chance to watch that one, it's just like, oh my God, classic Nebraska, play the circus music. But they didn't really utilize him in the pass game. And it's not just the receiving stuff, it's the pass protection stuff. I mean, Iowa last season, a few times, it's like obvious, like 2-minute drill, right? They're like, okay, this is where you try to pass to get down the field and get some points. They run a draw and he runs for 50 yards and they get points because they ran the ball instead. So not that he can, it's a question on tape. Why is he falling? Again, I think the questions about how good the offensive line was for him blocked up front. A lot of times the big runs that he had, it's like massive runways. But he still should be somebody who, Erick, I'll be curious if I put the over-under at 51.5. So, like, would he fall past the Broncos? Because I think there's a chance that in this class, he could fall to the third round all the same. I don't know if he's a fit for every team. The lack of receiving ability on tape, pass game ability on tape, and the just overall testing, I think I could see like crazy project like Judkins. I think it's going to go before him. I could see Martinez maybe going before him. More gap ability, tested better. So what would you put like the over under at for Caleb Johnson?
I'd probably put it right somewhere there in the 50s. I'm not sure if I would do 51 and a half. Probably like 55 and a half.
Okay.
Is probably the over under. Because as you said, I don't think that he's going to be there for every single team, even though I do think that, he's easier to project into gap and inside zone and all that. And that he has the traits to be more versatile in the NFL than he does. He's not limited to his zone only offense. I think that a lot of NFL teams are just going to, because we've seen it before. We've seen them look at these guys who've predominantly done one thing in college, which we don't get all that often, and they kind of shrug them off as that's all they can do. They kind of hold the style of offense they played in against them a little bit. And so I could see the NFL doing that with Caleb Johnson, and that could see him be, for a lot of teams, not on their board, because in the NFL, especially, you don't get teams that are super like 90% one system in the running game. At most anymore, it's like 60-40, maybe 65-35. And so some of those teams that are more gap oriented, they're probably, there's a good chance that they can write them off, and that could lead them to like, a team like the 49ers or the Vikings, teams like that. The Rams be more on it and just cut down on those teams, leading them to fall.
Yeah, and back to Caleb Johnson. I'm again Iowa fan, so I try to be a little more extra critical of those guys because I don't like homerism. I'll have fun with it, but what makes him a back in that area still? I mean, the tape is still really good. He's a big back, and I think he might have the best combination of feet and vision in this class. You rarely see him running into his own guys, and his ability to just be a glider. And despite not being like this overly explosive testing athlete, he hits a lot of huge runs for Iowa, and some of that is teams are playing 8-man boxes, and if he gets past that second level, good luck. But I think he does a really good job of his spatial awareness of setting up defenders in the second level absolutely maximizes his athletic ability in combination with size and just overall physicality. And I know that the popular comparison for him right now has been DeMarco Murray, which, that upright running style, a lot of zone stuff. And I think that's a good one. But I keep coming back to Arian Foster is one who's like, I mean, he's just big. He absorbs contact. He kind of flows the outside zone stuff that Kubiak was doing with him, the overall size. That's one that I keep coming back to. I know that my good friend of the show, he's won like best college, not good friend of the show, good friend of mine, won like best college football writer multiple times. Scott Docterman, who covers the Big Ten for The Athletic, his comp had been Larry Johnson. I don't think Caleb Johnson has the third gear that Larry Johnson had coming out of Penn State, but the Arian Foster has been my favorite comparison.
Yeah, I have to laugh about that because we talked about Caleb Johnson on Friday night. We had DW coming in, big supporter of the shows, and he was asking about it, and he brought up the Arian Foster conversation. And then before we went live, Lance and I, we were talking, and Lance was bringing up Arian Foster with that running style. That seems to be the go-to. I mean, even outside of that, there's other people that I've talked to that are like, yeah, Arian Foster. That when we see him, when we watch Caleb Johnson, that's who we see. So that seems to be one of the easier, as much as I hate comparisons, that seems to be one of the easier comparisons into it. Another one, I mean, not the same running back, but another one who kind of has that more upright running style. Matt Forte is another one who has that as well. But yeah, Arian Foster, that's just such an easy one for Caleb Johnson. And Caleb Johnson is one that I've always liked. I've never really loved him as a prospect, but he's one that I've always liked.
Yeah. And I do think there's a chance that you could get a massive benefit or a steal on him. I think he could fall to 85 just because I don't think he's going to be for every team. So keep it rolling here. Michael Ronquillo, good morning. Eric and Nick on Broncos for breakfast. Go Bo Broncos. Great to see you. Hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for the super chat. Keeping the lights on. If you guys cannot be like Michael on the Facebook side of things with the super chat, click the thumbs up, like, subscribe, share. What are you doing here? Otherwise, don't be a stranger. Everyone is welcome, and we appreciate you so much. We also got Gatorade Gaming. Good morning. What's up? Jeremy's talking about him. Says Johnson seems to fit his own blocking scheme more. That limits certain teams. I do think that he can do the gap stuff as well. I think like he's probably not as. You can tell me if I'm incorrect on this. I think that Omarion Hampton might be a little bit more gap limited. I think he might be better in reading the flow in an outside zone or zone-based scheme than the gap stuff, where I think Caleb actually is, because of the vision and the pacing, a little bit more either scheme fit.
Yeah, and with Omarion Hampton, that's been a conversation. I think it was Bob McGinn who really, I mean, he in his articles, he's always quoting scouts, and there was multiple guys, if I remember right, that he was quoting that were saying is that Omarion Hampton, there's a reason why some teams are higher on him than Ashton Genty, and that's because they run outside zone, and they absolutely love Hampton in an outside zone thing where it's a system, and it comes back to his vision. And I'm not trying to harp on it, but zone scheme, they can help a little bit with that by creating so many options that you can, if you miss this one lane, then they're going to open up a second one. And make it more opportunities for the running back to see the lane and hit it. And so there's a belief that Hampton is better in an outside zone scheme than he is in a gap scheme, and I don't disagree with it.
Yeah. And then Broncos mainly run duo, which is a gap scheme, but like as you mentioned earlier, teams do a little bit of everything. I wish we had a little bit more athleticism and I think he's not a bad player, but like if we had a little more athleticism at left guard, it'd be fun to see some more, trap gap power pulls. But maybe down the line, maybe the Broncos get Marcus Bow. That'd be a fun one down the line. Divine coming in. Good morning, Chase Wellner. Conga says, Nick, you need to change your picture. You don't look almost unrecognizable. I think that picture is from 2014. So hopefully I still look. I mean, I'm rocking the mustache today, so that's a different look entirely. But I thank you. I don't know. I do definitely look like a baby in that button-up shirt. That was a grad school photo, so appreciate that. Body Zafa. There's a beer out here called Bodhi Zafa, so I'm just going with that one. That's my go-to IPA. I feel like our roster is close enough to be a contender, but that is going to be BPA and positional value draft theory. Is that the best route for the Broncos to take? Keep building, go Broncos. I do think that there's like the BPA position of value to an extent, but you still like everything is like proportional, right? Like you're going to rate the running backs a little bit higher than the safeties this time around because you have snaps available. And I also think that positions that are rotational in nature, even if you have players there, you can feasibly take them a little early. Like offensive tackle, very valuable. You're not rotating tackles left and right. Edge rushers, defensive tackles, your top guys are playing. I mean, what did DJ Jones play last year? 40% of the snaps? And you're still paying him that money. You know that. So it does come down to a lot of different things. But on the whole, I'm with you, Bodie. Best player available, ranking, I think, a little bit position value. And we're going to get into it here as well in a second. Pearl's in the house. Good to see you, Pearl. Kayleon, Coach Chris, good morning. Coach Chris is always one of our favorites. Birds are chirping, sun's shining. We're getting closer to the draft. God is good. You're good, Coach Chris. Appreciate you. Ernie's in the house. See Jason Bonnie. I think we said hello to Jeremy as well. William James always comes in. Good to see you. Appreciate you hanging out here. Hope you're doing well. Heath Holmes also. God, I see Jeremy's comment. Good morning, Eric and Nick. Do you see us taking a tackle or guard in the second or third round? Not heard anybody talk about this yet. Kind of funny. We just talked about this. The thing that I have an issue with this is that I think you are definitely with Powers. Like people are talking about replacing Powers right now, Eric, which I don't. I mean, he's a B- level left guard, which is fine with me. And I think McGlinchey and Bowles, you're set up for the next probably 2 seasons there. I mean, we're case by case with, especially McGlinchey's contract, but there isn't like this obvious transition plan that needs to be in place right now. I think we're 1 year away. Like next offseason, we're talking tackles and cornerbacks. Obviously, new tape, everything changes, but the way the roster set up, those look like positions that could rise in early investment discussion. But I don't think this year also it's not an overwhelmingly talented, in my opinion, 10 first round tackles. Like what was the class with Wirfs and Andrew Thomas and all of them? Like it's not that.
Yeah, I'm with you with tackle. I think tackle is one that it's like we're not going to look at it till next year, even though they can get out of that Mike McGlinchey contract next year. I think it's one that they're looking for the next, keeping them in place for next 2. We're going to have both Bowles and McGlinchey for the next 2 years. Ben Powers, that is one where I also don't see them going in and looking to try to, upgrade now. But I could see them in that third round getting an interior offensive lineman with that versatility to play inside or out to either give them an option to replace Luke Wattenberg after the season or Ben Powers after the season. Somebody they can sit there and grow with and develop, who can kind of play both. And then you also have Alex Palczewski, who is playing into that as conversation as well, because they very much prefer him as a guard than they do tackle. And so he plays into that equation too of after this season, maybe that's who we're looking at left guard, Alex Palczewski, and we're moving on from Ben Powers. And it's just comes down to, it's like, I don't think it's a conversation to have now. I don't think it's a conversation that they're going to be trying to move on from Ben Powers now. If they were, I think they already would have done it. And so it's just all of, do they get a guy now for next year to sit and develop, to grow with? And if they do come in and happen to absolutely kill it at center, well, then you have a starting center next year. I don't think they're going to be looking at changing up anyone on their starting 5 for this year. And so that just kind of comes into play with where do you value that at, with how much Sean Payton values offensive line. Maybe it is there in the 3rd round or their 4th round pick. So that's just where it comes into, is where do you value that?
Yeah, and I have a hard time in this draft specifically, Eric, and I think it's harder for the Broncos because just Sean Payton, historically, he likes mass on the interior, right? To be able to run the duo and, really just create a lot of displacement at the line of scrimmage. And a lot of your center/guard conversation in this class specifically, we got some, I don't want to say pip squeaks out there, but like the arm length and stuff, I'm like questioning, like you talk about Seth McLaughlin or Jake Majors, like teeny tiny for the offensive tackle position. I mean, and also not incredible athletes as well. And they are very much like you're only a center.
Yeah.
And I don't know personally if I am drafting only centers in the 6th round, because the odds of those guys even hitting is already narrow. I need to have guard center flexibility. Now in this draft class, blah, 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 it's whatever, but like Wattenberg, guard center versatility, Forsythe, guard center versatility. And a lot of these guys, I just don't know if they have the prerequisite size and length to be anything but pure centers. Jake Majors, Seth McLaughlin, questions about them. Drew Kendall's a little bigger. I think he could probably do both. Joshua Gray, another one. His height is fine, but 299 with 31 and 3/8 arm length. Now, granted, the caveat that all arm lengths out of the combine this year are hoopla. But that's how I'll put it. We can talk about that later. Jeremy says Nick's getting closer to being banned at playgrounds with a dirty squirrel on his face. Yeah, I'm allowed to do whatever I want with facial hair, but my wife absolutely hates the mustache. And when she goes, I just kind of embrace it. Or if I'm going on a backpacking trip, I'll just do it because I think it's hilarious. But it is definitely not a good look. Yeah, it's God bless you. God bless you guys dealing with it. I can't pull off the facial hair of Dylan and Carl, but the mustache, I'll lean into the comics. Did you see the picture of the rest in peace, the fire chief who passed away, and his photo that they shared?
Mm-mm.
I'll have to share it later. It is one of the most absurd mustaches I've ever seen in my entire life. Victor Rios in here. Great to see you. Yeah, I was right. Bodie. God, I just got a 6-pack yesterday. Shared one with my mother who's here. Good morning, mates. Good to see you. Appreciate you. Hope you're doing well. Colorado comes in. Ben Powers is a good player, man. Valuable just to have a steady, solid start on the offensive line. Can't say that about a lot of teams' offensive line. He's your 4th best offensive lineman, but he's a B-, and he'd start for, I don't know, 25 teams, 20 teams across the interior. I wish maybe he'd have center, just have a little bit of flexibility, but I don't think you're moving him from the spot. So happy to have him. I've got in a conversation with somebody on Twitter the other day that's saying that Luke Wattenberg was better than Powers. And I'm like, we don't see him the same. But that's, is what it is. We'll leave it at that. But Powers is fine for sure. He's somebody that I think a year from now we're having conversations given where the contract's at and just the natural phasing out of players getting older. That's something I've kind of been working into my articles as well, Eric. It's like, why can't we keep all these guys? Well, father times always wins. And you can't just keep signing guys over and over and over again, because eventually you have that DeAndre Hopkins age 30, 31 drop for a guy. So talking about Cortland Sutton. So you have to have that natural churn of talent.
Yeah, I mean, and not only that is that you have positional budgeting as well. That's something that you have to factor in. And the Broncos already have one of the most expensive offensive lines in the NFL. And, it's not going to change because you already have these contracts here or it's not going to get any cheaper because you have McGlinchey locked in, you have Bowles locked in, you have Powers locked in, Miner's locked in with his big extension. The only thing where it can change is center. And that is one where it's like either they bring in a rookie and on a cheap rookie contract, or they go sign somebody, and that's going to be, again, expensive. So you have that positional budgeting for the offensive line, and I've talked about it a lot with the defensive line and being able to retain Zach Allen and John Franklin Myers with DJ Jones extension, and it's the same thing with the offensive line. It's positional budgeting, and at some point, you got to get somebody who can come in and play on a cheaper contract or a rookie contract to help balance out the budget at the position, which helps balance out the budget for the whole roster.
Yeah, we got William Baker down there in Sydney, Australia. He's asking, what do you think about 20? Trade up, trade down? Who are they picking? I mean, right now, I would hope they would trade back, but it always takes 2 to tango. And, somebody falling that's worth getting up. So we'll see. I know there's been Rams talk about trading up. There's been talk about the Browns. There's been talk about the Giants. So maybe somebody like the Patriots want to trade up for an offensive tackle if they don't get one at 3, or the Texans want to come up for a tackle. There's a lot of options. There's been a lot of talk about the Bills and Kenneth Grant as well. And how big is the difference? They have a lot of picks this year. The Bills do. How big is the difference for them for like Grant to Tyreek Williams? Is it worth, giving up a second and getting back a day 3 pick in return, or a future pick? So those are the ones that I'm keeping an eye on for right now. I'd have to guess somewhere in Hampton, but it really depends on how the board falls. And it's just, we're going to do a first round mock here in a bit, but this is as hands up in the air shrug as I've been in a long time, which is good.
Yeah, if he's there, I think it's Hampton. But it just, is he there? Last time we did a first round mock, I had him going 10 overall, and now we have Jordan Schultz saying that he's possibly going in the top 14, 15 We have a couple of the ESPN guys now talking about how they're not sure if he's going to make it past, 10 to 12 in that range. Seems to be that he's moving up. And again, talking about these teams that have him with the scheme aspect of it, there are a lot of teams that do have Hampton over Genty. That Hampton is their number one running back. And that's been something that's been circulating going back to before the combine, even that Genty is not every team's running back one, that Hampton is some of them, and is some. And so there's definitely that possibility that he's not there. And then if he's not there, then it's hard to say. Obviously you're picking at 20. It's pretty impossible to say who's going to be the pick. I would like to see them explore a trade down, but as Nick said, it takes two to tango. If Colson Loveland's there, maybe the Chargers decide to offer up to go get him and to get the Broncos to move off of him a little bit, because I think Colson Loveland would be up there for the Broncos. The Rams, that's another team that could have that competition that they're going to want to get there, because it doesn't sound like the Steelers are going to want to move. So if Colson Loveland's there and the Rams want him, 20 is going to be the spot they have to get ahead of the Chargers, not 21. So it's just a whole lot's in play. Takes two to tango. And as you said, the Browns, the Patriots could be one, the Giants, and there's a couple other teams there picking, 30, 33 to 40 that also could be wanting up depending on how the board falls and all that. One of the big ones is how far does Shedeur Sanders fall down? That's going to have a big impact on who's all willing to move up to 20 as well. So just a lot in play, a lot of different scenarios that makes it dang near impossible to predict.
Yeah, and gosh, is Jackson Dart actually a first-round quarterback, or is it Malik Willis of years ago? It can go like last year at this time. It was like Penix and Nix are day two quarterbacks, but is the league changed enough now where it's like if you think at all they have a chance to be a starter, screw it, because the return on investment comparatively, like, is the day two quarterback dead? I mean, we'll find out. It was just 1 year, but last year was to go from 12 to what was it, 190 something or whatever it was for Spencer Rattler is absolutely wild. Also wild coming in here. God bless you. Good morning. Just because I love this site, and to the new member, Ron Jeremy. I don't know if that's about my mustache here, if we're making a Jeremy Sean conversation, but either way, you can call me what you want for $20. I'm here. So that's fine. God bless you. I just know who Ron Jeremy is. I was going to say there's worse things to be, but now I'm like, well, did he get canceled for something? I don't know if I want to say that. So God bless. I know he had a famous mustache. I'm going to leave it at that. That's it. But getting into it here, top 5 needs for the Broncos. Thanks again, Coach Chris, for the $20 super chat. Yeah, it's my grandpa, my mom's side, has a awesome mustache. So that's all I've ever known on him too. So kind of a shout out to him as well. And this is the only time I can do it, unless I'm in, I do my mountain mustache out there, and that wards off any people and animals, I think, also. So that's a good one. Nobody wants to mess with this. But top 5 needs, I think we're in agreement, Eric. It's running back. The Broncos absolutely okay. Well, we might disagree. For a draft, again, I didn't say first round needs, but just draft needs. The draft is deep. I think that unless you trade up for Genty, I'm down for 2 running backs in this class. Like, even if you take Hampton, give me one of the super pass catcher guys later on as well. I think you have a change of pace player in McLaughlin. I think Mims can be kind of some of that pass catcher back stuff. And Estime, still going to compete. We'll see. But running back is the biggest draft need. Luckily, it's the singular most easy position to fill with a running back, and it is one of the positions that has the best return on investment outside of first-round players day one. Also, now for every Audric Estime, there's a Bucky Irving, whatever which way it goes. So you got to hit at the same time. But running back's the biggest need. George Payton pretty much outright said they're going to draft a running back. They talked about at the combine podium session how much we love the run game infrastructure. Running backs running the ball, we're not good enough. So running back number 1 for me, and I'm appreciating all the mustache conversation here coming in.
Yeah, running back for me, it's number 2, and I know it's gonna catch some attention. People are grabbing their pitchforks and torches and everything, but the big reason why it's number 2 for me is positional value. And it's, as you said, is that is a draft where you can find guys pretty typically throughout, and especially in a class that's this strong. Yes, it's very much a need for the Broncos. No disagreement there. Everything you said with it, that's exactly why that is my number two. My number one is the defensive line because it is such a higher valued position for me. And then you add in the fact that Zach Allen, he's a free agent. Yes, he's going to be extended. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. They basically have to extend him because of all the void years on his contract. But then you have John Franklin Myers. What's going to happen with him? What's going to happen with Malcolm Roach, Jordan Jackson, Matt Henningsen, Ayoma Uwazurike? And how much do you trust those last three guys? So for me, it's defensive line. It's not just for the need this year. It's for the need down the road and valued position. And it's a position that after you get past the first, second round, defensive line gets harder to find. It gets harder to hit on them. So all that is why, for me, defensive line just edges out running back. And it's a better way of putting it is that it's 1A and 1B in kind of needs for me in that tier.
And when you say defensive line, you're talking interior defensive line.
Yes.
Specifically. Okay. Because you could throw an edge as well. I wasn't sure if you were cheating and throwing them all. I'm going to take the back seven, like, but that's I'm with interior defensive line as my number two. And it's just because I place such a premium on having quality depth there. The Broncos don't have it seems like right now the Broncos don't have a all decade type of talent on the defensive line where, I mean, even when you have that guy, you want to add talent around them. But like if you had a Micah Parsons, a Carter, a Von Miller in his prime, whatever, I think the conversation kind of changes. But if you don't have that like first ballot Hall of Fame talent on the defensive line, I think you got to be able to have hockey ships there, be too deep on the line. And the only way to do that is to continuously invest in those units. So I lean into the street guy. You guys are roasting me today. Looks like he's out of high school. Well, the baby face. I'll take the baby face. I mean, I look better than 33, so that's great. Defensive line for sure. It's a great class for it. I do think in this year, Eric, you might be able to find some people that fill the niche that the Broncos have a little bit later, like round 3, round 4 in this specific class, given the body types. Also, given the Broncos, what they run is not every single team isn't going to value what they value as well. You know, the 3-4-1 penetration, like is Jared Ivey going to be a want on every team or Savion Jones? No. For Denver in the 3-4-1 gapping stuff and that John Franklin Myers mold, though, yeah, that sounds pretty good to me. So I think Denver can find somebody round 3 and 4 in this class. I'm always going to advocate for premium resources on that alliance, and that's why it's my number 2 still. But and that's more of a keeping it deep, keeping a good rotation in there and setting up. I know that everybody, because of Bo Nix and where we're at right now, we're all focused, a lot of people, not all, focused on 2025. But for me, it's a 2025 through 2028 window. And doing that is as much about, adding talent for 2025 as it is getting ahead on needs. And the big impending need where the entire position could completely change is the interior defensive line. So that's my number 2.
Yeah, and with that is, you can find those niche guys, as you said, in that 3rd and 4th round. Whereas with running back is you can still be finding guys in, 5th, 6th, 7th round. And that to me was the big difference when I talk about finding guys later is you can find running backs throughout. Maybe they are those niche guys, pass catcher, receiving back only in like Brashard Smith or Marcus Yarns or a guy like Woody Marks, or is it just only a power guy inside? You can still find those niche guys, but you can still later on that you're getting to those guys than you are the defensive line, whereas the defense line's more inside. Yeah.
I got you. And with the mustache talk, this is the guy I was talking about. He passed away from a heart attack, but he's meme famous now because of the mustache. Anthony Gansler. Rest in peace. I don't think I could do that. Just like his mustache going down to almost his chin. But God bless, man. What a mustache. Tom Selleck ain't got nothing on firefighter Anthony Gansler. Rest in peace. So, gosh, we're off the rails today. Number 3 for me, Eric. We're rolling here. Oh, man. I know that it's been a lot of pushback on this, but the value position is so high, and we talked about Courtland Sutton's age. I'm going to go wide receiver as number 3. We're seeing guys get paid unbelievable. I mean, when guys like Tutu Atwell, only a 1-year deal, but like $10 million? Are you kidding me? For a wide receiver 4 on a 1-year contract who can't like do much? I think that I'm I got to put wide receiver number 3. And also, I'm going to push back. Like, I think you can like Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin, and Devon Vele and still want to add to the room. It's one of those positions that it is heavily rotated. And let's say you take Egbuka at 20, only ever ends up being the 40th best wide receiver in football. Some people will say that's a bust, but on the rookie contract, that's fine for me. That's better than having the 15th best running back at that same draft spot. So I'm going to put wide receiver 3. I don't know after Courtland Sutton, you have a true wide receiver 1 you can funnel the offense through. And that's a massive long-term question for me on this Broncos team.
I'm right there with you. It is wide receiver, and I think there's a pretty obvious first 2. Then I think there's a very obvious third one, and then you get to some that you can have more discussions about. That 4th and 5th that we're going to cover. Courtland Sutton's age. I am always hesitant to bet on development, especially for day 3 picks. Devon Vele, great rookie year, one of the best rookie years for a non-first or second round receiver, and in the NFL last year, and the best performance from a 7th round receiver going back to Marquise Colston. That's great. His age still brings hesitancy to me, and can he handle a much bigger role, or is he still just kind of that 3rd, 4th guy? They're kind of flip-flopping with Marvin Mims depending on who they're playing. Can Marvin Mims still take a more defined role as a true wide receiver, or is he still going to be more limited as a gadget player? Troy Franklin, can he learn to catch the ball without having, facing the quarterback? Can he catch over the shoulder? That was a big issue last year. That was where a lot of drops happened. Ball tracking is a big issue with him as well. So can we get those guys to develop? Maybe. It's not something I'm willing to bet on. And then again, with Courtland Sutton's age, not having somebody to step in as that number 1 receiver, you'd kind of need that. It's why I'm still pounding the table for wide receiver 1, despite a lot of people saying wide receiver is not on the options for them early. Maybe it's, a little bit of some smoke there to try to hide true intentions. We don't know. But wide receiver, there's positional value is skyrocketing. Number 2 receivers have gotten $30 million contracts in T. Higgins. So you got to sit there and now have that conversation like we do with quarterback about the value of a rookie contract. We really have to start having that conversation with wide receivers now too.
And I'm pretty sure that Mike Kliss, we'll talk about this. Eric, remind me, Wednesday, we should go over what Mike Kliss listed in his mock, because we like to give him, I don't think anybody, him and Chris T at the Denver Gazette, I think they're the best Broncos insiders.
Yep.
But as far as the reporting and breaking news, just direct pipeline there with those guys. But we'll go over Mike Kliss's thing. I do think that he listed running wide receiver as some of the options round 1. I could be mistaken, but the fact that he even gave credence to it as an option, it feels like it's after running back and defensive line, but then it's wide receiver. I do want to do this first round mock, Eric, so I'm going to give you my 4 and 5 together, and I'm doing that also because I think 4 is ahead of 5, but they're kind of listed together for me as well. Tight end is my number 4. And then off-ball linebacker is my number 5. I did debate interior offensive line. I did debate edge as well, because Kliss has thrown out edge as a day 2 possibility for the Broncos, and with Benito's contract, we'll see. But I went tight end and linebacker. Tight end, Adam Troutman. He's a fine Y, but Lucas Kroll, it'd be better if he was on your practice squad. And Atkins is fine. You're looking for a long-term somebody. If you want to be more 12 personnel, if the fact that Evan Ingram's going to play as many wide receiver snaps as tight end snaps, getting a tight end and a tight end heavy class, I think it'd be good for the Broncos long-term. Also gives you some time. Like if you take a tight end day 2 this year, they're going to be kind of a niche developmental piece this season, and they're going to lead into something more. After that, linebacker, Alex Singleton's going to be 33. Missed a lot of time last season. Greenlaw's been injured, hasn't played much last season, came off that terrible injury. Contract's kind of set up to where you have some wiggle room. I think linebacker is 1. I don't trust Drew Sanders. Sternad is a 4th linebacker. So tight end for me, and then off-ball linebacker 4 and 5.
Yeah, I'm right there with you with that. Tight end, it's still, very much a need. Evan Ingram, 2-year deal, age, injuries, shouldn't take it off the board. Board for them. I'm not a big fan of Adam Troutman as a Y. I think that he really struggled there last year. He hasn't been, they kind of praised his blocking when he came in, and it just has been very lackluster. You can go and look and see a lot of the issues with the run game, not just the running backs, but blocking from the tight end position. That was a big one. And then Lucas Kroll, he's a guy that at this point probably going to should be a practice squad player. Could still see him stick around on the roster, but it's when you watch him play, it's more of this guy is definitely not rosterable, definitely practice squad player. So you definitely can upgrade there over both those guys, as well as adding somebody for the future. This is a draft where I could see 2 tight ends added. You can add somebody who can play that, eventually take over for Evan Ingram as that slot tight end, as well as develop somebody that can, or grab somebody who can try to develop as, the blocker. Nate Atkins has kind of come around somewhat as a blocker, but there's still definitely room for growth there. And then at linebacker, Alex Singleton's age, the questions about the depth. I know there's a lot of hype surrounding Lavelle Bailey after his preseason last year, but the size, length, those are kind of issues with the modern NFL. Can he be more in coverage than he actually is? A lot of questions there. Drew Sanders, just so many questions I can get in there as well. With the issues that he brings, can he actually handle being a more traditional linebacker? What can he do? And then and then Justin Cernod, kind of special teams starter, an emergency linebacker that you keep bringing back, but we kind of had this conversation at some point. You got to get somebody to replace him, because as he gets older, his play's not great to overlook it as it is. But as he gets older, eventually you're going to hit that drop from him as a player and what he can offer up on defense. So linebacker, tight end, that definitely closes out the top 5 for me.
Yep. And then just the honorable mention, can always add cornerbacks. It's a volatile position. And we saw last season how quickly the entire operation can cease to function once you get to those depth cornerbacks. Now, how much do they let Chris Abrams drain? That changes things a bit for me. But adding another cornerback depth, especially with Riley Moss's injury history. And then we talked about it a lot earlier. The interior offensive line, getting a long-term guard center option to develop for a year or two and get in there. But I think definitely behind those top 5. And at the end of the day, my caveat, my asterisk will always be, you can have all these needs, but at the end of the day, what should determine the direction you go in the draft is the evaluation on the individual prospect.
Yep.
Let's say you're sitting there at pick 20 and you love running back and wide receiver and defensive line. You want that. And Jihad Campbell falls there and you rate him as a top 10 player in the class. Figure it out. We don't have a spot for him right away. Figure it out. Take the best player. Guess what? If you look back 5-10 years from now, I think they're going to have, I always think back to I think it was the Lions, and they had like Nick Fairley, and they just paid Michael Brockers, and they ended up passing on Aaron Donald for Eric Ebron. Oh, we need a tight end more than interior defensive line. How did that look? I mean, this is just like, trust your board, take the best players. You can weight it based on positional value and need, but if you have somebody that you grade obviously higher, like in their own tier on the horizontal board, take the top talent. It's going to work itself out more times than not.
Yeah, definitely. And that comes into play as, we talk about best player available. We talk about positions of need, when in reality, teams typically follow the best player available at a position of need. And even then, that is something, as you brought up with the Lions, that still can bite you in the butt. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. And I always come back to is you always trust the significantly better talent, even if it's not a position of need. And as we talked about, you mentioned Jihad Campbell. Well, guess what? That is still a position of need. Mm-hmm. Even though there's some concerns about how long into the season he'll be out with the torn labrum surgery, it's still a thing of like, well, we have Alex Singleton. He's on the final of year's deal. His age, him coming off injury. Well, if he struggles early, well, then we have Jihad Campbell, who we're working back into it, getting healthy, that maybe we insert him. So there's a way to it. And again, you just can't pass up on talent just because you may not necessarily have a need at that position. You can figure it out. At most of the positions in the NFL anymore, there's a rotation going. So at the very least, you are getting a rotational player with the potential to develop into a starter in a year or two, when contracts are going to be freeing up space as a starter.
Yeah, and with the cap expanding, but I think the rookie contracts aren't growing proportionally with the cap. I could be wrong there. Like, I'm not a CBA. So like, I think the rookie contracts, maybe they are growing proportionally, but they might be even a better value against the cap compared to what free agents are getting. So like, I guess Jihad, we talked about linebacker, a potential need, but like, let's say Malachi Starks, you absolutely view him as a top 10 talent and he falls there, or Will Johnson falls there. Those are the ones. It's like, if you view him on their own plane on the board, first I'm calling up, seeing everybody wants to come up for the guy who's higher first. Can I get a little bit more? But then we're on that part. So AC, we had this one for a second. Harold Fannin Jr. or Terrence Ferguson. For me, it's Terrence Ferguson. A little bit more versatility as far as the potential to play in line. For me, Harold Fannin is more of an H-back slot type. Jonnu Smith is the comparison I've liked for him. I know that, I was really pushing back against Harold Fannin when it was like, oh my gosh, we can take him at 51. 20 question mark? I'm like, oh my God. Please stop talking. I don't know. Nobody specific out there. I don't know. But heard that conversation. I'm like, hell no. Fourth round, though? Harold Fannin? Sure. Like the profile, he's kind of a unique piece. I trust Sean Payton. Fourth round, that's fine.
Yeah, and I'm in the same boat with you. I mean, Terrence Ferguson at 85, I'm all for that. I wouldn't take Harold Fannin at 85, so that kind of answers that question there. Who do I prefer? But Harold Fannin in the fourth round, I'll take it because he is a guy that you can sit there and grow and develop and work with to replace Evan Ingram in 2 years. If Ingram is able to stay on the field when his contract's up, when he's going to be turning 34 years old, you can turn to Harold Fannin Jr. for 2 years, see what he can offer you after growing and developing him. And Terrence Ferguson, you have a way to get them something out of both of them as a rookie. I think Ferguson offers up the ability a little bit more. I don't think he's going to be a great inline guy, but I think he can be at least decent enough in obvious passing situations there than Harold Fannin Jr. can be. Then that's where, the kind of difference is. It's a little bit easier of a path for Ferguson than it is Fannin.
Yep. Yeah. Just he's more prototypical. Now, granted, the blocking stuff, he's a little bit high cut. It's still a work in progress for him, but he can operate, I think, a little bit more normal tight end, which I think raises the floor. Okay, so we're going to run this through, Eric. Hopefully 15 minutes. We don't have to go too long. You're doing the AFC. I'm doing the NFC. And I'm going to be over on the simulator, so I'll leave Dylan and you guys to pull up and talk anything that, super chats if they come in or anything like that. We'll get into it. So you're on the clock, Eric. Back to back here.
Cam Ward for the Titans. They canceled their workout with Shedeur Sanders. It's everything's pointing to. I mean, I had to push back a little bit few weeks ago when we did this about how the Titans still seem to be a little up in the air. Well, since then, they seem to have been very much made their decision. Cam Ward is the guy. And then for the Cleveland Browns, they had a heavy contingent at the Colorado Pro Day. They spent a lot of time. They had dinner with the night before with both Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders. They're a team that I think would like to move up later for Shedeur Sanders and take Travis Hunter here. We've kind of heard about this, talked about with the New York Giants of they'd like to take Travis Hunter early and then move back up and get Shedeur Sanders if he falls somewhere to the 20s. I think the Browns would like to follow that kind of same path. They very much view Travis Hunter as a wide receiver. They've been very clear about that. I'm going to go Travis Hunter for the Browns.
All right, sounds good. We got Jason Bonney coming in, $5 super, says, does Genty being a wide receiver in high school lessen the worry about his college workload? Not for me. Because it's still taking a lot of hits by much physical, more bigger profile players. Also, Genty played, I think, defensive line when he first was in high school because he first started playing in bases across Europe because he's a military brat. So then came over, played at Waco, maybe Frisco, one of those places in Texas. Came over defensive line first. So I don't think it worries as much. The one thing I will say about Genty is we are definitely underrating his pass catching ability. Because of last season, Boise State's pass game was kind of like Caleb Johnson with Iowa. It's like, why would we try to throw him the ball when that adds a variable and less chance of success because the incompletion, whatever, timing, where you just hand it to him. So I think we're underrating Genty's pass catching ability and comes back to some of his wide receiver background stuff here. Okay, we're going to keep on moving here. I'm really going to lean hard, Eric, into this is going to make no faces. You can make faces. Won't hurt my feelings. I'm going to lean hard into unconventional stuff. Abdul Carter is almost always conventional here. But I'm going to lean a different way. I'm going to go Membu here for them. Their offensive line has been absolute trash for years and years and years now. This is the type of draft pick that a team that's GM and head coach is likely to make? This is more of a stability long-term one. Probably not, but I want to see how the board can look a little different when we get down. So I'm adding some variance. Get out of the groupthink. I think Membu's out there. I think Andrew Thomas can't stay healthy. When's the last time the Giants had a good right tackle? I mean, honest to God. So I'll go Membu here and just kind of switch it up.
And I don't think it's very possible that this happens, but if it does, I think you can look at some assault aspects in Abdul Carter's history this past year. A couple of assault stuff there that has been brought up as a concern with him for some teams. I think the teams will overlook that for the talent that he brings, and I think at this point the Giants would definitely take it. But again, wanting to be different, Membao finding somebody to improve that offensive line of theirs that has been terrible for many years definitely makes sense. For
I
the
did want to add too. There's been talk of the Giants, and I don't know how credible it is, but Giants and Patriots flipping picks, and that would give maybe Carter for the Patriots.
yeah, and that's where I was going to go is for the Patriots Carter. I mean, at this point, they got to get somebody to help get after the quarterback. Mike Vrabel has, when he was with the Titans, took a lot of risk on some guys who had some of those off-field stuff, some of those character things and issues, which is being flagged for Carter a little bit. And so I could see Vrabel being okay with it and betting on the locker room that he's building to keep Carter on the straight path.
Yep, absolutely. So you got a bunch of picks here in a row. AFC was cheeks last year. Goodness, three more picks.
Let's see, Jaguars keeping going on that, trying to kind of follow you a little with this about going things to present a different board here. I don't think he goes as high, but Tedero McMillan, getting the Jaguars another pass weapon or a pass catching weapon to pair with Brian Thomas to help kind of get Trevor Lawrence a little bit out of the slump that he had last year. They handed him that big contract. They want to get there. And as much as I want to go with, out of the usual with it, I'm not going to give up Ashton Genty for the Raiders. That's seems to be one of the terribly kept secrets. There seems to be some debate about which way that they want to go. Pete Carroll wanted the running back. The general manager Spytek kind of wanted to go offensive line. So maybe Will Campbell here, but I think that Pete Carroll's going to win, and Ashton Genty to the Raiders is basically inevitable at this point.
Back on the clock, AFC Jets,
and then Will Campbell for the Jets. They have to figure out that offensive line. They have a lot of guys who can be considered playing out of position a little bit, a lot of injuries as well, some age issues as well with them. Will Campbell, he's one of those guys that at the combine, one of the many guys at the offensive line at the combine who had shorter arms than at the pro day. Come to find out, the guy doing the offensive line measurements at the combine were doing it wrong. And then when he was confronted about it, he didn't want to acknowledge his mistakes. But Will Campbell, everybody talks about how basically clean he is on tape as a football player, despite the measurement issues. So Will Campbell to the Jets to help solve that offensive line.
All right, I'm on the clock here with the Panthers now. I got some NFC teams here in a row. I'm going to end up going with Mason Graham here. They tried to end up getting that Milton Williams. Didn't work out, and they paid Wharton, but Wharton's not going to keep me from going Graham. Now the defensive line, which was they're kind of trying to copy the Broncos here. Defensive line was god-awful last season. Now you add Bobby Brown, you add Wharton, you add Derek Brown coming back, and Mason Graham. Defensive line goes from just absolutely abhorrent disaster to a unit that probably could argue top 10. And what the Panthers saw last season, a big turnaround, was their offensive line. I think they try to replicate that. The defensive line. Now we're on the clock here with the Saints. Saints, I think we've gone with some weird stuff with them before. And gosh, I'm going to go with something different here. They could literally go almost any which direction. I'm going to give them, there was somebody I had in my head for them, and then I'm like, oh, it's gone. I'm going to go Tyler Warren here. A team that long-term questions at the tight end, just weaponry in general, different direction. So Bears now on the clock. Bears are kind of scrambling. Oh my gosh, what do we do? What do we do? You know what? We're going to go back to our well here. Mykal Williams, defensive edge rusher, the archetype. There's been some Bears trade down talks also, so we'll see. They already have 2 top picks, but that's one that could possibly happen here. And then for the 49ers, I'm going to go Mike Green. The background's been concerning for him, but we'll see long-term. I've heard the Cowboys have there's some interest in linebacker. They had a linebacker who absolutely destroyed his knee. Really good player. Overshown, maybe over. He might be gone this season. He might never be the same. He absolutely shredded his knee.
I mean, you talk about linebackers destroying their body that are playing good for the Cowboys. There's so many that you can go.
Yeah, but it was the end of the year. Had just.
I think it was Overshown.
Yeah, he was
but I'm not 100% sure.
So I'm going to end up going with Jihad Campbell here for the Cowboys again. Just different players. I mean, You never know, because it could be like a coaching thing, like, oh my God, we absolutely love this person's personality. So switching it up a little bit.
Yeah, and the Dolphins, nobody's talking about it, but they seem to really want to boost that offense a little bit. Terran Armstead retired. Maybe they can go off the tackle. But one name that, talking with some Miami beat guys, one name that consistently gets mentioned, Omarion Hampton. They want this more powerful runner to help wear down defenses or take advantage of worn down defenses with all the speed they have, and then help open up room for Devin Achane to capitalize off of worn down defenses, or Hampton to beat them down even more, just to add that different element to the offense that is very explosive and have plenty of speed on it. And the Colts, there seems to be a terribly kept secret here of the Loveland for the Colts. They definitely want that playmaker at the tight end position. They've kept trying to get guys for it, and they've taken a lot of shots and they keep missing. So I'm gonna stick with somebody that's pretty traditional for it, with Colson Loveland to the Colts here.
All right, we're on the clock here with the Falcons now. Falcons could go anywhere on the defensive side of the ball, and it would make sense to me. The board hasn't fallen fantastic for them. I'm going to end up going with Jalen Walker, though. Different kind of player, somebody who I like him, man. If he falls to the Broncos at 20, I know that that's one that they don't really love, or Broncos fans don't really have talked about there, and I don't think he falls to 20, but just such a unique player. And maybe call me old school, call me whatever you want. I want to punish Patrick Mahomes and getting players who can actually like make him pay for holding onto the ball and escaping the pocket and like ice up son after the game. I think Walker's one of those guys. So I'd love him at 20 for the Broncos. But we're on the clock here now. NFC again. This is a team that could go a number of directions. I'm going to give them Will Johnson. They could go defense. They haven't had a good boundary corner since Peterson. Really add somebody to the matchup piece of Budda Baker there.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some talk about how they view their cornerback room pretty well, that they believe in it a lot. And they are a team that can go many different ways. The Bengals, they're another team. I think that here they can go a lot of different ways, but you want to give them a defender. There's been a lot of Derek Harmon to the Bengals talk, but I want to try to go a little bit different with the issues about Trey Hendrickson and his contract. I'm going to give them Izaraku out of Boston College, who fits that kind of mold. He's a guy that a lot of people think could end up being the first edge rusher taken, because he's clean on the field, he's clean off the field, and teams are absolutely loving him.
All right, we're on the board here with the Seahawks now. I'm going to go with Kelvin Banks Jr. I feel like that isn't a name that we've linked with them a lot, but he's a good athlete. He can do the outside zone stuff, and they have questions long-term at right tackle. Abraham Lucas has been injured like crazy, so guard and tackle versatility there. I'll go Kelvin Banks. Oh, it's me again. Sorry, I had a cough. We're figuring it out. We're on the board here with the 49ers. I think long-term, they might have some cornerback questions, if I recall. They're a team that's looking for different areas. They love to do a lot of different matchup zone stuff with how they blitz. So I'm going to give them Jahdae Barron here. Inside, outside, we'll figure it out. And a good defensive back.
Yeah, I think ideally they want a linebacker. They want Jalen Walker or Jihad Campbell, but they're both gone at that point. So Jahdae Barron as a backup for it. Now we're on the clock with the Broncos, and talking about needs. There's no running back that I value here. I know that a lot of people in chat are okay with Trey Henderson here this early with the foot injury. I talked about this with Dylan on Saturday night. I don't know if you've heard this or seen this, but there was a guy that I talked to who he kind of brought it up, and then I went back and watched it. When you go back and look at him, some of his cuts off that right foot, you can see him wince a little bit. There are some serious concerns about the stability of him being able to stay out on the field with the right foot, some combine medical red flags that he is going to be at the medical recheck, which I think is sometime this week. That he's going to be back for them to see how that foot is continuing to heal up. So I'm not going Henderson. I'm going to go defensive line here. I think that is what makes the most sense. We talked about it with the needs. That's the biggest need for me. Gonna go with Kenneth Grant at this point. Egbuka is one that I talked about, that we could talk about. Derek Harmon. We could talk about Gray Zabel to give them that interior versatile guy. But again, do we value that at 20? I'm not sure, especially with the guy that you have to really, who I think might be best at center, but that is such a big projection moving inside. Then with the Steelers on it, I've kind of been down on it. But let's give them Jackson Dart. I think that they would do that. I don't. It's tough because Shadur Sanders is still there at this point, but there is a lot coming out of Pittsburgh that they would prefer Dart over Sanders. So
Wow.
even with Sanders on the board, I think that's where I'm kind of going with the maybe the questionable decision here of Dart over Sanders.
Yeah. And just see Jeremy in here. We went Loveland at to the Colts at 14. So that's like the only one that's been like more consensus. There has been some Jihad Campbell Colts stuff that I've heard, but Loveland's off the board. So I think I would have gone Harmon there, Eric, just for a little bit more versatility. I know that you mentioned the hamstring issues with Grant. I wish he tested a little better for his size. Like it's like not over, like he's big. Well, RAS accounts for being big, and it still was not like a special athlete.
It was still good. It was what,
it was good.
7-1-1?
I'm looking for nines on the defensive
I
line.
get it. And
Yeah.
I do. And it comes back to the hamstring injury. Had he been able to prepare for it, because he's been dealing with this hamstring injury going back to the Shrine Bowl. That's why he didn't participate at the Shrine Bowl. So, I mean, that's where you and I differ about Grant here is I'm factoring in that hamstring a little bit more with the RAS than you are.
Yep. And I'm fine with it. I'll say, I just think I probably would have gone Harmon for the versatility. But that's if Denver took Grant and I was on the clock covering it, I'd be smiling ear to ear because they took a different body type and type of player that should just raise the floor of the room the next 5 years by a lot. So you're on the clock again. Chargers here.
Yeah, and real quick, I just want to address something with String Guy. It says Henderson ran a 4.43 40. I think his foot is fine. The issue isn't the straight line; it's cutting off of it. It is planting that foot, putting his weight on it, and exploding out of it. That's where the concern with his foot is, not straight line speed. Chargers here, they're another team that I think can go quite a few different ways. There's been a lot of talk about this guy getting up into the first round. I talked about it with, I believe, both Friday night and Saturday night with Lance and Dylan. Mason Taylor, the tight end out of LSU. There's been a lot of talk about him getting into that first round, and the Chargers seem to definitely want a playmaker at tight end.
Goodness gracious. All right, I'm on the board here with the Packers now. I'm going to go with a Shamar Stewart here. They need just classic Packers. Doesn't he just feel like Ravens, Packers, one of those teams just taking a player like that? On the board here with the Vikings now. Vikings could go a number of different directions. I'm going to go something a little different here. I'm going to go Siobhan Revell. I feel like he's been sliding. I absolutely like the metrics with him. And I went back and watched some of the tape, and he just moves different. And I think you need to be a freak athlete out there at cornerback. So taking a shot there. I think he's got, outside of Travis Hunter, he's probably got the highest upside of any cornerback in this class. So I'll go with Siobhan. Excuse me, there's no H there. Siobhan Revell for the Vikings.
Yeah, I think that it's a good pick for them. I question if that is the route they'd go with his injury, and him coming off it. But I can't disagree with it. With the Texans on the clock, Emeka Egbuka, they still need wide receiver help, and pairing him with CJ Stroud. I mean, you're kind of carrying over some of what they had in college and hoping that it can hit here.
So on the clock now with the Rams. Rams could go a number of different directions. I feel like we went with Malachi Starks last time, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go Josh Simmons here. They've had issues in the offensive line. Rob Havenstein has been issues for them. I don't know if Alex Jackson was hurt last season as well. He can play guard. He can play tackle. We're raising the floor there, protecting Stafford and investing in that unit.
Yeah, and then Colorado coming in, huge reach for Mason Taylor at 22. It may seem like it, but when a lot of people that I trust, a lot of people's opinions that I value, a lot of people who have very good insight into the draft, start talking about Mason Taylor in the early to mid 20s as a first round player, especially if Loveland and Warren go in the top 15, I start paying attention to it. And Mason Taylor, he's a guy who's always been under the radar a little bit. I mean, I know you and I, when we've done these mocks, we've talked about him in the second and third round. But Daniel Jeremiah consistently throughout has had him at like top 35 player on his board. Yeah. And he's one of those guys that going back to the Senior Bowl, Daniel Jeremiah was talking about Mason Taylor as a late first round pick for a certain team. So I don't think it's that big of a reach overall. Does it go this early in the actual draft? I'm not sure, but I would not be shocked at all if we hear his name get called somewhere in day one.
Yeah,
And then
every single year, Eric, there's like you're at the pick, and it's like, whoa, Mason Taylor, are you serious? First round, we've been mocking him to the Broncos consistently available at 51. It happens.
yeah,
So just
and
he
then
could fall still. We'll see.
and then also with that too is this year, I've talked about this multiple times, 10 to 15 first round picks. When you have that few picks and you still have to figure out, 17 to 22 other picks, guys are going to be reached for. Like based on our boards, based on our view, Mason Taylor could definitely be one of those guys. 20 years old, he's very well rounded, and a lot of what he has to work on is just development and all these different aspects. But he's just brings such a high floor. And then with him too is going back to how consistent it is. When you get these late pushes for guys as a first round pick, and I know I'm kind of eating up our time here. Derek Harmon to the Ravens. That's where I would go just to get it over to that. But when it's as consistent, going back to late January for Mason Taylor being talked about as a first round pick, and it's not something that just started over the last week, I put more credence into that than, hey, it's April 10th and we're talking about, April 7th, and we're now talking about Mason Taylor on the first. Never been mentioned before. Well, maybe not, but it's again, late January is when we started hearing Mason Taylor as a first round pick.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm here on the clock with the Lions now. I feel like we're getting to the point. It's not always the best way to go, but like there's players that we have to get off the board in my opinion. Like Golden is one, Starks is probably one. I just don't see what the Lions are. I'm gonna go Tyler Booker, massive earth mover. But we're on the clock here now with the Washington Commanders. I know it's not a need. I know they just traded for this guy, but it is freaking Cliff Kingsbury at the end of the day, right? And they want to run 10 and 11 personnel. So I'm going to give him Matthew Golden here. Are we leaning into it too much? Well, who are you covering now? You like Terry McLaurin, Golden, Debo Samuel, blah, blah, blah. We're going to totally, overwhelm teams with receiver talent and let Jaden Daniels pick his matchup and spread them out. So one that probably won't happen, but it's a value position all the same. And man, it would be he's different than those guys. So I'm going to go with him.
Yeah. Definitely a good one. I'm not a good pick for the Commanders in terms of the position. I'm not a fan of Matthew Golden. I could have seen them go Luther Burden here and just kind of double up on that Debo Samuel type. Bills, Nick Scourton. This is a guy they need that guy at the edge position. They have some guys who are quality and good. Greg Russo still hasn't, taken that step to be the guy. And, Nick Scourton kind of fits that mold and body type that they like there at the edge. So Nick Scourton.
Right, you're on the board again. We still have Malachi Starks on here. I don't know if you can force him into the Chiefs, but I don't know if he'd fall out of the first round. But you got to go where you got to go.
Well, I'm not going to go force him here to the Chiefs, but I mean Georgia Bulldog. He has to be forced to the Philadelphia Eagles, right?
Yeah, I was going to pick somebody else there, but that's okay. I can probably.
But for the Chiefs, I'm gonna give them a wide receiver here, somebody to help do that. Jaden Higgins, the Iowa State kid, who's also been getting a lot of hype as that late first round pick. And it was going on. It was kind of like Mason Taylor. It was going on at the Senior Bowl. It kind of quieted down a little bit for him. And now we're starting to hear it again of like, hey, this is a guy that's a first round pick. So Jaden Higgins for the Chiefs.
That's who I was going to go with the Eagles. So you make me perfect. I was going to be like, man, could you do that? Because I was going to do the exact same conversation. So that works out. That's perfect. Well, we got the Broncos. We got Grant again in this full round mock. I think we did that one of our mocks recently as well on here, but a lot of fun. Definitely a lot of different fits, which we forced here. And, that's how the draft works, right? It's always like, oh, we know how it's going to work out. And then the picks start coming in and, only 20% of them are what we thought they'd be.
We get Michael Penix at 6 overall.
8.
Yeah. Sorry.
6 was neighbors, I think. But a lot of fun today, guys. We got to fly. Appreciate everyone. Michael Ronquillo, Coach Chris, Jason Bonnie coming in here. If you guys are joining us, make sure you hit the thumbs up on the way in, on the way out. Like, subscribe, share. Follow Eric and I on Twitter Erick is at Erick Trickel. I'm at Nick Kendell MHH. Also follow us at Mile High Huddle over at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and Mile High Huddle pod. And as the ticker says there underneath, please subscribe, like, and share. We will see you guys again. I'll see you guys again tomorrow night, and we'll see you again Wednesday morning. Erick, I think for Jeremy, who hung out with us with a full round one because he doesn't want to hear us talk about the Jags pick, I still think it's fun and interesting. But that's why I do the show, right? It's what I want to talk about. I do set the topic every morning. Wednesday, we're going to talk Mike Kliss's mock draft, and we'll do a full Broncos mock as well. So appreciate everyone. Have a good rest of your day. Happy Monday. Go Broncos. Choose kindness and compassion. Peace.